All right. What's up, Al? What's up, Guru? How are you guys? Will we ever climb out of the D category on TikTok? Well, I can't wait to get a haircut. It'd be great. Let me pull this back. What's up, Mr. Boss? It's a good handle. Siale, Siala. Siala. Simulation Talk 217, everyone. Forever Missed 18. How are you? Cosmic Cowboy. It does feel like we're on a different app right now, but you know. Josh Moray. Welcome everyone to the chat. Thank you so much for the likes. Appreciate you guys. Tony. And Dean, don't forget to like and share. Woohoo! Yeehaw. And join our Discord. If you are going to YouTube, come to Dango Thoughts and join our Discord, please. And always listing it here. Codeofreality.com. Codeofreality.com is our website. Make sure you visit that. Let me just wash my hands. I feel like they're a little sticky from the orange juice. Here we go. Ana Machara, El Grillo. Welcome to Simulation Talk 217. If you're new to the channel, we're mostly talking about the simulation hypothesis. My name is Danny, and I'm claiming to have found proof that we live in a simulation. So we meet here almost every single day to discuss the phenomena and many topics, depending on what we feel like. It can be science, philosophy, God, spirituality. We even touched on politics, even though we really try not to. Matthew, how are you? Mark Allen. Okay. I think we're almost. Nico is in the house. We're almost there in terms of I think we can begin. We have enough people. Welcome to everybody across platforms. If you're on TikTok, on YouTube, on Twitch, on X, I always encourage people to go on Twitch. It's LaserX83 on Twitch. Trying to grow our following there. So the more people we have at any given time, it helps us gain some traction. Actually, right now it will be extra helpful because we are at a critical point where if I have enough people on average live, then the lives will start staying on the board, which would mean that more people notice it. So thank you for this. Okay, there we go. Ebony is on Twitch. Appreciate you, Ebony. Thank you so much. Because I know there's a slight delay. Owl's on Twitch. Appreciate you guys. Thank you. Or you can just do on both, honestly. Honestly, I don't know if it tracks as the same IP address, but hopefully it doesn't. How's contacting the intelligence going? Pretty good. What's up, Susan? Rewind, Ricky, Ella, Dan, Turtle. How are you, everyone? Beginning anew. What a lovely handle. Missy MO. Hello. Okay. So what can we dive into today? What happened recently? You guys haven't really been bringing up too many topics. Let's see. No. Let's see what happens here. Trying to look through my timeline. What happens? Not too many things. Well, doesn't seem to be too promising. I guess it's a little, which is a good thing. I guess the news cycle is kind of relaxed. What's up, Jay? Thank you so much for the gifts. I appreciate you. Title gifter. Appreciate you for the roses. Thank you. Jay is in the house. Life was claimed to be found on planet KB 112. Oh my God. Chase is in the house. How are you, brother? So good to see you. I haven't seen you in so long, brother. And this is going to be a good chat. If you want to come on and chat, brother, you're always welcome. Always great to have you on. Just let me know, please, and I'll pull you up. What is it? Life was claimed to be found on planet KB-112. Life on KB-112. 4 days ago. You know what? Why am I trying to do it the hard way? Let's do it the easy way. We have ChatGPT, people. We are ChatGPT, people. There we go. Let's see how quickly we can find out information. What do you say? How do you say? Here we go. Master prompt. Give me the outline and important details. Let's see what it says. Oh, and yeah, remind me all to do the OBS together. It appears there might be some confusion regarding KB-112 based on available information. There is no known celestial body or exoplanet designated as KB-112. However, there are references to Kepler-112b. I guess that's what people meant. Type Neptune, like exoplanet mass. Oh, maybe it's too new. Were there any claims about life being found around it? Checking in NASA and everywhere else. No credible scientific claims, evidence, suggestion, discovery, life. So I think like this is interesting, right? Because even though obviously ChatGPT has its own biases, because all the engines do to some degree, but I would say that if you put something like that, it is trying to stay as neutral as possible, right? So if it says something like that, do you continue investigating this? I don't know. For me, this is the end of the search, basically. On subjects like these, at least in the time being. What do you guys think? 18 K2 18B. Okay, let's see. What about K2 18B? But I think you would know. Ah, wow! It was confused just by the. I guess I have the. I got the autistic ChatGPT. You have to tell it exactly. Recent observations have suggested potential signs of life on the exoplanet K2 18b, though these findings are preliminary and subject to further verification. Location, approximately 124 light years away in a constellation of Leo. So really, really close. Type A, I see an exoplanet hypothesized to have hydrogen-rich atmosphere and a liquid water ocean. Size, about 8.6 times the mass of Earth. We didn't ask for mass, we asked for size. Orbit, Resides within its star habitable zone where conditions might allow for liquid water. Interesting. And I just got a little tiny butterfly landing on my computer, so I think everything is true. Scientific caution. Despite the excitement, scientific community urges caution. Alternative explanation. Some scientists suggest that spectral signature attributes to DMS might be due to other compounds such as methane or results from unknown non-biological processes. Interesting. Cool. We should go on an expedition there. Who can make it happen here? Who has connections to currently unavailable technology that we can get our hands on really quickly? How are you, brother? Wait, it's still connecting. How you doing, my man?
Yo, I'm actually how are you? Rick and Morty. If you need a spaceship.
Oh, you watching Rick and Morty, or you are inside of Rick and Morty?
I am related to them, and I have access to the spaceship on Wednesday afternoons. If you're trying to take a trip.
That's incredible. All right. Well, wait. Who are you related to Rick or to Morty? Because that kind of changes things, I think.
Me and Rick go way back, bro.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Well, I'm excited about this. What's up, Chase?
No, actually, I think Rick is the one you want to be related to, right? If you're related to Morty, then you're at a disadvantage.
Yeah, if you're related to Morty, you need some cajoling to happen.
I'm traumatized. I'm secondhand traumatized from Morty.
Even though more evil Morty seems to be in control of everything, right? So that's the punchline.
There was a night, obviously, like all the people who smoke a lot think Rick and Morty's a great show, right? To watch while you're.
I think it's a great show. And I don't smoke a lot.
Let me tell you though, one night me and Lucy and the Sky were chilling, and my buddy said, "Let's watch Rick and Morty."
Yeah.
Highly recommend never doing that because it was the most traumatizing show I've ever seen in my life. It all became so real.
I mean, that's the fun part about it, right? Was it interdimensional cable?
We watched the entire first 2 seasons nonstop, from the episode 1 to the last episode of season 2. It was horrible, bro.
I mean, listen, I'll tell you why I think it might have been the wrong choice. Just because you don't notice it in the beginning because it's mostly about the humor. But Rick and Morty, it's pretty gory in terms of, like, from all the cartoons, they have a lot of gore. So I think that's what it is. Like, that you don't notice it when you're not high, but when you are high, that stuff is amplified. You know what I mean? Like when people are being cut into pieces, things like this. I think a lot of it is due to that stuff.
Do you remember the jelly bean scene in the bathroom stall with the jelly bean?
No. Which one?
I can't even talk about it.
That's brilliant.
How you doing, Chase?
But yeah, I actually had something real to talk to you about. I've just been kind of fucking around since I joined up.
Wait, this wasn't real? Wait, you're not friends with Rick?
No, it's just I haven't seen him in a while, so I got to keep more.
Okay. You got me worried there.
Do you remember the whole drone thing that was happening back in October?
In Jersey?
Well, if you didn't look into it, yes, in Jersey, but it was actually happening all over the whole country.
Okay. I remember people talking about it, yeah.
I saw one tonight. It's been weeks since I saw one, and man, was it big, dude.
Did you take a video of that?
I did get a video of it, actually.
Spaghetti people is great. What's up, Vicky?
I could take a screenshot and like pull the photo up to show you a picture of the video, but
wait, can you send it on Discord?
Discord, I can.
There we go. So let's do it.
Oh shit! What's your Discord in the bio?
If you go to Dango Thoughts on YouTube, actually, I should probably also post it on TikTok. I just kind of don't do it. Dango Thoughts on YouTube. The third link from the top. On my main page, that's our Discord channel, and you'll obviously find me there. Or you can even put it in the group in Ebony, where would be the best chat? I think it would be in general chat. People look at that one the most. Also, if you are not on our Discord, you definitely should be, regardless, because it's a great community of awesome people.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out, dude.
Chase, how have you been, man?
Man, I've been good. Yeah, just it's normal day-to-day stuff. In between the flex 9 to 5 kind of stuff. Trying to balance analytical idealism with panpsychism, maybe.
You actually trying to do it in real life? That's amazing.
I mean, it's kind of a constant thing. I mean, talking about drones or, the concepts presented in stuff like Rick and Morty, man. I mean, everything. I'm sure, Jay, you sound like a regular on the channel. I admittedly will pop in sometimes more frequently than not. I haven't spoken to Danny in it's been a month or two, I guess, maybe.
Since we spoke last, I think more like 6 months.
Yeah. Has it been that long, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Oh, my word. I'm sorry about that.
It's 2029,
I feel
brother.
I feel like I'm keeping up with you. So, I mean, I saw you on Danny Jones. Thought it was a great show.
Thanks, man.
It's rad that you and
Zoltan.
Five Finger Death Punch are like really good friends. So
yeah, he's
cool.
dope. Zoltan is amazing.
Yeah, cool.
Zoltan is great.
Cool, man.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I've been keeping up. I think the pursuit of truth is ever and ever more significant or more present.
Do you feel like it's been growing, like just across the spectrum?
As far as like the overall population, or with respect to me?
No, population.
I think that it's cyclical and it comes in waves. I think, throughout recorded history, there have been periods of enlightenment, and that kind of cyclical thing will continue. I don't think there's ever going to be this point in time where all is in complete balance. I mean, the experiences that I've had through the stuff that Danny uses in his experiments, the molecule, and in addition to like normal life experiences that include up close encounters with craft. I mean, I know Luis Elizondo really well. I almost worked with Tom at To the Stars. This is some stuff that's shaken my perception of what reality is. Those experiences of like CE5 that you hear these people talk about, or human initiated contact event, or as Jake Barber's in the news now, he's talking about the dog whistle stuff. Like, that's been around for a long time. People have been able to conjure these things into existence in the sky for thousands of years.
You're a really good person to ask this, because there was recently... Well, actually, sorry, I do want to ask you something very specific, but please continue. Finish your point.
Well, I answer Jay's question. I mean, I think that right now we're in one of those periods of enlightenment. Yeah, and probably particularly in the West because of all the crazy shit that's happening right now.
Because we're amazing. What do you mean?
Yeah, but I think... Yeah, I think so. I think more people are at least open to the idea that there's something that's really significant that we're missing, and it started off for me as craft in the sky and, actual physical extraterrestrials abducting people and real physical cryptids and cattle mutilations and, ghost encounters and all these things. And they're all related to the nature of consciousness and altered perceptual dimensions. That's all it is. And John Mack, Sagan said to Mack, it's just people hallucinating. And John Mack said to Sagan, what the fuck do you know about hallucinating?
To Sagan?
Carl Sagan.
To Sagan?
Who is Carl Sagan? Sagan, yeah. Who is Carl Sagan to tell John Mack, a Harvard-educated psychiatrist, about people hallucinating, right? So anyway, the bottom line that I was trying to make without rambling on is, it's all about reality. And
Yeah.
one of the things that the molecule can show you is that you shift in and out of these dimensions, but I mean, even the shift is hard to talk about because time and space are only defined for the human existence a specific way. They're not constants. Anyway, yeah. So try to balance analytical idealism with panpsychism.
Well, thank you for sharing that. What I wanted to ask you about is because we had a few conversations here. Maybe you were hearing it here and there, but as you know, Danny also had what's his name, Greer on, right? So then you know Elizondo. So first of all, I would love if you know anything about what he's doing now, because he was kind of like out of the loop for a little while. That would be interesting to know. But also, it seemed to me, and this is just personal analysis, and I don't want to get you in trouble, so I'm not going to put you on the spot of like voicing your opinion. But if you can, just in terms of like the technicalities and what people know and don't know, so okay, let me frame this. So I'm just gonna voice what my opinion is. So there's no hidden corners, and then you can give me your input. I don't know anything about Elizondo aside from what I'm seeing him speak on YouTube and the fact that you know him, and I know you're a really great guy. So the fact that you know him it definitely plays a role in me kind of knowing that you wouldn't be associating yourself with people that are, nefarious actors. But also, I have seen a conversation when he was on the Toe podcast in which he showed a certain kind of emotion that to me looked very authentic and very real. Like he deeply cares. Like I saw it in his expression. And then I'm watching someone like Greer, and this has nothing to do. I told this to Danny myself. I was like, look, like I don't know. I can't get behind this guy, man. Like he's so obnoxious, like in every possible way. And also to me, it's so obvious that he's just like lying through his teeth about basically every single thing. That's my opinion. If you like him, I'm not trying to, ruin your experience of him. I'm talking to everybody right now, but that's just, I'm a person. I'm entitled to my opinion. That's my opinion of him. I find him to be an obnoxious person. And also the fact that then when I watch some of the conversation, I didn't know that he does this, but then I saw that he was like throwing all this dirt on Elizondo and like talking shit about basically everybody. So not to get into the whole high school, like, who's a good guy is a bad guy. I know, as you explained to us before on the podcast and told me before, that you have experiences yourself with these things. So nobody's questioning the reality of the UAPs themselves. But I've recently been in the habit of voicing my opinion and saying that I personally think, if I have to just analyze it from the outside, I would say, I don't know what percentage, but a very high percentage, above north of 95% of all the people in that space talking about that stuff, in my opinion, don't know anything about the actual subject. Like they're just in the business of like making noise to sell books and that stuff. But you mentioned C5 or whatever it's called, right? This is Greer's system, right? So I guess it's a very long-winded of saying, and I wanted to make sure that it's all transparent and there's no like, so you know exactly where I'm coming from. I just can't get behind anything that Greer does because of my impression of him. But would you say that also from your personal experience and all that stuff, that something like C5 would work?
Okay, yeah. So that's real quick. What exactly? I'm pretty knowledgeable on the subject, but not like super deep. So, like in one sentence, like what is C5?
Or
okay, so CE5 is close encounter of the fifth kind, and it's an encounter with supposed extraterrestrial intelligence through communication via telepathy, or it could be right, it could be direct, but the point is it's human initiated contact. It's a human initiated contact event. So when it comes to Greer, real quick, Danny, because I feel the same way about Greer. But to preface everything I'm about to say, I'd say that the sheer nature of reality to me seems like anybody's narrative that they make up in their own mind their own universe, the only universe that exists for you, for me, for Jay in the moment, like that universe is as real as any other universe to anybody else. So the narrative that Rear paints, the narrative that Lou paints, that Chase paints, they're all true, which is wild. But yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I don't agree with what Rear says. I feel like he's fanatical. I feel like there is some truth in the base kind of layering of what, the message that he preaches. I believe there are higher intelligent species that are in contact or collectives, call them whatever you want. They don't have to be physical species, but some form of separate autonomous intelligence. And I do think that, he talks about the different types of UAP or UFOs, and there's some truth there, but, all these black op secret access programs and space fleets and stuff, I don't believe so. It sounds kind of crazy. Maybe it's possible.
No, he's just, he's just being absurd about the most basic things. Like we said, I don't know if you saw, but he told Daniel one time in the conversation that somebody offered him $2 billion, or I think it was $4 billion.
Yeah.
And even Daniel was like, almost like, he kind of poked him back. It was like, how did it work? Did they offer like a one lump sum, or was it like payments? Like, this was like, do you know what $2 billion is? Like, who would give you $2 billion? It's like, it's so absurd,
Yeah, I don't know, but who's the other individual? Oh, Lou. Yeah,
yeah,
Lou,
because
so,
you know him, right? So I guess it was more in the context of, because he was saying a lot of, how it is, like nobody knows, so people some people believe that Greer is the thing, and then some people believe that Lou is the nefarious player, whatever. And I'm just kind of looking at behavior. Like, there's a certain thing about behavior that can actually tell you a lot about a person, and if you're really good at looking at that, it becomes certain things more and less tenable and untenable. For example, after I saw that thing with Lou, usually he doesn't show too much emotion. It's very like matter of fact. But that one instance when he was on the Toe podcast, on the Theories of Everything with Kurt Jarmungal podcast, and he asked him about certain things, and then it was that one spiel for like 10 minutes. There's a clip of this where Lou is talking about that, if people would know the truth, they would go back to their religions and things like this. And you could see this heaviness and this like very deep emotion and care. This kind of a human moment can't come from somebody who across the board is just like a nefarious player, right? Like in it for themselves. Like, to me, it doesn't compute. And this is why, even regardless to him knowing you and knowing that you're a good guy, even that was a moment that really, like, I bought in. Like, I was like, okay, whatever it is that you're saying, I have a lot more reasons to kind of trust it, because there's this human component in there. And I was contrasting it with Greer, which very clearly he just is just out of control.
I feel so over my head in this chat with you guys, because we got one dude who's friends with Five Finger Death Punch and another dude who's friends with Jake Barber.
I don't know Barber. I know Lou.
Lou Elizondo.
But we're just people, man.
I'm kind of just like half joking.
The Five Finger Death Punch thing is way cooler than Lou, in my opinion.
Zoltan is very cool, that's for sure. I always tell Zoltan to his face, I'm like, I can't believe we're really good friends. He always laughs. I'm like, this is kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's rad. Yeah, if you haven't seen that, Jay, that's that's Danny Jones podcast. So if you get on YouTube, Danny Jones, Danny Laser X, I don't know what it's under, Danny, but
no, it's Danny Jones. There's two conversations on Danny Jones. There's
Yeah.
my conversation with him originally a few months ago, and then the one with Zoltan together.
That's right. They are two separate interviews, aren't they?
Yeah.
My mistake. Yeah.
No, that's
Both really good. Yeah.
thanks, man. So tell me what, like, your experience. First of all, do you know what he's up to recently?
I haven't spoken to Lou in a little while. He, I think you had an initial question of, what's my impression of the guy, my relationship with him. I mean, it has mostly been professional. I almost went to work for To the Stars, helping them develop an AI-based app for iOS and Android platforms to integrate UAP sightings and classify, compare to, FAA stats and stuff like that, right? Weather tech. And then
Chase is an engineer, by the way, to everybody for context.
Yeah. Electrical mechanical engineer. Yeah. And then I was building an expeditionary vehicle with a tech stack on it that was designed with the intention of going out and calling UAP in. And I was working with TTSA, To the Stars, and Lou and Tom and Angels and Airways potentially. We were going to go on tour. We were going to do all kinds of stuff with this stack. But essentially, it was a hyperspectral imaging system. So image analysis in ultraviolet and infrared and visible spectrum, 15 miles out, 6 pixels across the target, is something that could look inside of a 737 and read what somebody was reading on a magazine kind of tech. And have that, and obviously the stack was AI operated and compared all the known flight data and everything. So it was a pretty sophisticated system, probably comparable to what Barber is taking out. I don't know. There have been a couple of other guys that built lower grade systems. My system was like a $500,000 system, so it was pretty sophisticated. Something you'd find on the bottom of an F-18 on top of a Land Cruiser. Pretty badass. But we ended up not really doing much with it. We also were potentially going to go on HBO at one point with it, have it flown out to islands and, for UAP, and it's tied into a health kit on the platform that tracked everybody's vitals and out in the field and all kinds of stuff.
Not the island that everybody thinks about, right?
Yeah, the island was one of the locales. Yeah. But yeah, no, none of that ever happened. Also, same thing with Skinwalker. I can go out there still anytime I want. I've never been, but at some point I'll take a rig out there and set up. But, again, like one of the reasons that I kind of lost steam on the project and I self-funded everything was because you can just connect. You don't have to go anywhere to have an experience. Like, and there is some truth to there being hotspots and more activity in certain locations for sure. But like the ultimate question here is the nature of reality itself. Of course, there's physical extraterrestrials interacting with Earth. Everything that can happen given enough time is happening. That's the point. That's what's happening. And everything that can have consciousness has consciousness because consciousness is fundamental. So consciousness is fundamental. Everything is derived from it. And everything that you can possibly imagine times infinity has already happened, is happening right now, will happen. That's what I think.
But you know my spiel about this, right? You've heard it a billion times before, which is okay, fine, yes, but you still can't walk through a wall. So there's something about that, right? So there's something about the world models that the way they execute themselves in this point in time, it still this still has some rigidity to it, and I guess what I'm saying is that rigidity is worth talking about. Like I think
it's resonance. You hear it when you break through it. Everybody talks about the sound. It's in music. It's been talked about for centuries. It's frequency. So you get locked into these states of focus intentionally. Like if we were just free, I'll think about this and that and this, and it's more dreamlike, and we're not firmly integrated into call it the simulation or whatever, the magazine of the day, then what's the point? So I think that's why we can't walk through walls. But we do walk through walls every night when we go to sleep. Don't we?
It doesn't feel the same to me. So there's yes, you can say it's a different frequency place, but something tells me there's a little bit more to the story than meets the eye. So like there's a little bit more. I accept that there's a layer from which, if you look from that perspective, it truly is just a matter of where you're looking, so to speak, in the mind space, and that's what happens. but the execution, the steps that follow, the computational steps that follow, they have, it's almost like, okay, now you're running this program for a little while. And I guess if no other point of contact with a more rigid worldview, it will be the closest one I can get to is maybe you can say that there's a momentum to a certain point. So you can say, okay, if you just change your mind right now in your state of being, literally wonders would happen, right? But because there's a momentum to what you call physical, even if it isn't physical at bottom, there's a momentum to what it is. It's not going to happen right away. It's going to take it a second to fully unfold. That's what I mean.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with that. I mean, I think we can see proof of this in the work of people like Joe Dispenza or I mean, you know, it's in the placebo effect. It's in the miracles that all these different religious institutions hold on to. Sorry, my cat's crazy, and I've been tasked with getting crackers here. So sorry.
Before I forget, somebody, Charlie, how are you, Charlie? He made a comment about Dr. Roger Lear talking about he removed the 17 implants before he died. The reports show that samples have isotopes. Do you know anything about this? What's your opinion on this?
Yeah, so Lear, before he died, there was I'm up here. Feeling okay? Okay.
The cat?
Everybody's sick in the house, so I gotta check on her. The cat, he wants to keep you company. He's gotta come in here. Okay. So Lear, I'm trying to remember the name of the documentary, but there's a phenomenal documentary that was produced, I think, by Orange, if I'm not mistaken. And it may be called Patient Zero, if I'm not, something like that. But yeah, they extract at the end of that a so-called implant, and they run materials analysis on it, and they prove that it's something that couldn't possibly be manufactured on Earth. It's not something that could be manufactured in the solar system.
Wait, how can you prove something like that?
Based on isotope numbers. So
okay.
It's quite clever, but yeah, very profound kind of bottom line to that, the conclusion and findings there. And they're not the only ones that have done that.
So the isotope numbers, they point to what? To the amount of energy required to manufacture that element?
I believe that's correct. It has to do with maybe solar radiation in the system. Something. Okay,
so the certain it's not a stable state that can exist here, or at least cannot be created here because of the conditions we know about. That's the argument.
That's right. Yeah, okay. That's right. Yeah. So conclusively, statistically, probabilistically proven at the end of that documentary. Again, I think it's called Patient Zero, or we could use.
I've watched it before. I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But other analysis have been done on so-called implants, and the same thing is true. The same thing's true for the particulate and the scraps that people like Grant Cameron and others talk about. There's no way to manufacture some of these metamaterials that we have samples of.
Patient 17, he's saying the documentary's name.
Yeah. Same thing's true for the ports that show up and a whole host of other things.
So Lipsian is saying something interesting. Lipsian Music here on YouTube. She's saying when she lucid dreams, it feels more real than this life. And then somebody else said the colors feel more vibrant. I've actually never heard this before. So like I lucid dreamed in my life, and never ever it even came close to feeling as real life. So like, yeah, you can do more things because you're not, imposed by the physical laws of the environment. So you can fly and you go, but it never felt more real than this. Like not the spirit molecule definitely feels more real than this. Lucid dreaming never felt that way to me. So that's interesting. The people reporting this. Did you ever have that, Chase? That lucid dreams felt more real in essence than this?
It's a different kind of experience. I mean, as real in lucid dreams just as real, I think. Not I wouldn't say more real. I've had experiences with the molecule that I think could classify as more real.
Let me define my
define
definition of more real. So I think that any instance of experience is real, and as real as anything else. So it doesn't matter if you have an experience of just light, dark, and nothing else, versus somebody who has like an experience close to a god. All of it is real because it's part of reality. But I guess what I'm saying is more substantial. It's closer to the number of functions that the ultimate experience can have. So like it has more of these facets and they're coherent. That's what I mean by that.
Yeah, I would say I agree with that. You could also maybe say an increase in sensory input. It's like kind of like having your eyes almost open and then all the way open.
Yeah.
But for all the senses. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems that I'm in the minority here. Most of my listeners and also some of my mods, so Ebony, Owl, Charlie didn't voice any opinion on this, but Ellipsian and I think Greg? No, Ciala. Yeah, everybody is saying, and I see here on TikTok as well, I've only had a few more dreams that felt more real. Anamachara Nix, thank you. But even a few. I never even imagined that that's possible. I will say that one time after I did my 5 experience, I had some reactivations. You know how it happens after 5, and one of them happened in my sleep, and in my dream I smoked a bong in the dream, and then I was launched into full on molecule experience,
So
and that was
smoked in
definitely more.
dreams and felt it before, because I've never met anyone else but myself who says, "Yeah, I smoked in a dream and felt it."
Yeah, no. First of all, I feel things in my dreams. So like if I get like something happens, I get stabbed or something like this, it's not obviously it wouldn't be like in real life, but I feel the physical sensation for sure. Yeah. There's like a translation of some sort there. But I've never experienced dreams are always more cloudy for me. Even lucid dreams where I'm fully aware I'm dreaming.
Can I tell you one dream story real quick? That's wild to me.
Yeah.
So I had a friend who I don't unalived for TikTok, but I ended up having a dream of him one night, right, where I'm at a house party and I'm not lucid dreaming, and I start to go down this hallway and there's like this little nook off to the right that's almost like a reading nook. It's got a couple of chairs, a little bookshelf. And for whatever reason, I sat down in a chair in the nook and there was a girl in the other chair. And everything froze. And I woke up and like started lucid dreaming at that moment in the dream. And my friend who had unalived had like basically taken possession of this girl that was sitting in the other seat. And he told me, "Hey, it's me." And we had a whole talk about everything that had transpired, why, everything like that. And so when I woke up the next day, I was super fucked up in my head about it because I was like, was it real? Did I actually just have that conversation? Or was that all in my head? So the next night, I have another dream, and he's actually him. He appears as him. And I don't really remember what was happening beforehand, but when I came upon him, I started lucid dreaming. And we had a whole nother more in-depth conversation. And at the end of it, I was giving him a hug, I was crying, and I thought in my head, how do I know this wasn't just like last night? Meaning, like, how do I know? That's just the thought I had in my head, but basically, how do I know this is real or not? And he laughed, he chuckled, right? And he leans back from the hug, and he has this wise-ass smirk on his face, and he just says, "Gingerbread," and he smiles, and I wake up. And I'm like, gingerbread? Like, the fuck is gingerbread? Like, so I reached out to his girlfriend and I was like, "Hey, sorry to bug you, but I had this dream and me and her were tight. We've all known each other since middle school." And she's like, "Laugh my fucking ass off. You've got to be kidding me, this kid." And I'm like, "What?" And she sent me a YouTube clip And it was like one of his favorite skits from his favorite TV show that they would watch all the time. How I never watched it with him, I couldn't tell you. But it's his favorite part of the skit is this lady runs away screaming, "You can't catch a gingerbread lady." It's like, or it's a long story. It's really not that funny unless you really watched it. But regardless, it was his way of like leaving.
So essentially, you're saying that your dream world and your life crossed paths, basically.
Yeah, like I fully believe that not every dream is just something in your head to keep your brain busy while you sleep or whatever.
Oh yeah. Can I just
Yeah,
add
please.
to this, Jay? I feel the same way, but I feel like we modulate in and out, right? And some people are aware of it and have more control over it than others. I'm on the lower end of the spectrum, I think, and I do think we can improve through focus as well. But yeah, no, I have no doubt. If you haven't listened to the telepathy tapes, that's a really good collection that Kai Dickens has worked with Dr. Tal on putting together proof of telepathic communication in nonverbal kids or high autistic individuals anyway, nonverbal autistic individuals. But it proves that telepathy and these kinds of things like communicating through dreams with people in our lives that are, alive or those that have passed or prior incarnations or parallel selves or whatever we call them, all that stuff is real. It's proven real by Kai's work.
Yeah, and I think that I don't even think that it's like if you take the physicalist perspective, I think it's kind of like outdated in general. So I don't even think that the brain, the states of the mind that you have, depending, so it is based on the brain function, but you might want to add to that what the brain function is switching between different locations or addresses in the mind space. So then you go to this other mind space that doesn't include all these limitations of what is called the physical space, which is some portion of the mind space that has these more rigid limitations, but that's still part of the mind space. So then it makes perfect sense of, everything and plus some, like basically everything else, which is what Chase was pointing to, which is how do you reconcile idealism with everything we understand, even from a scientific perspective.
Right. Yeah, right. Because then my train of thought becomes do I even want to personally, do I even want to deconstruct what's actually happening in the brain? Because the brain is it's just an interface. Like it doesn't exist in this model of analytical idealism, which I think is closest to the truth, coupled with panpsychism. Again, that's the problem we have with analytical idealism is the chair can't be conscious, but we know the chair knows it's a chair because it's a fucking chair. So it's
well, no. I don't think that's what the idealism postulates. But the idealism postulates is no, because and I have some resistance to the concept of doesn't exist. So because it's everything exists basically. So it's like it's the concept of it and the experience of it and all the possible states of it and like all of it, right? And under idealism, it's not that look, Chase can be conscious. It's that the chair is as much consciousness as you are, but what it's the substrate, the thing out of which everything is made is mind, including the laws of physics. So, and this is again outlined the best by Bernardo Castro, but basically your brain is a third person representation of what the universal mind looks like internally when it clumps into these special instances of smaller mind bubbles inside. It's like separated boundaries of the larger mind, like a fractal. And the brain is what the object, the brain, it's the third person representation of what the first person representation, which is everything you are with your psychology and everything looks like when it's gleaned at from a separated boundary, which is just the same like you have in multiple personality disorder. So but and the universe as a whole, including the chair and everything else that is in it, is the third person representation of what it is that is the mind from a first person perspective, the universal mind. So the universe is literally the representation of the universal mind. That's essentially what it is. So the chair in that sense is just another third person representation of part of what exists inside the first person representation of the universal mind.
But see, but don't you think that okay? So even these.
I love it. I love it. Please push back on it. Yeah, this is great.
Christ almighty. All right, so let me try to dumb this down a bit, just for my own benefit. The perspective is what matters in the moment, is it not?
Yes. Well, the experience is what matters in the moment. Perspective, I guess, depending what you. I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to make it more difficult. I just really want to know what you mean by perspective. Do you mean point of view, like what you choose to see it as? Is that what you mean?
Maybe it's right, the experience. It is the experience, but it's the instantaneous experience based on the
Observation.
Conscious decision to have the observation, maybe?
Or maybe it's just the consciousness the conscious moment. Can we call it conscious moment?
Conscious moment. I like that. Yeah, okay. So now I've lost my thought.
Wait. Well, you had some pushback against the idea that the universal mind is the equivalent of the brain of a person.
Right.
Yeah.
So the conscious thought is all that can ever be. It's all that ever is.
I would immediately offer correction there. Not a conscious thought. A thought is a structure inside the mind that encapsulates some informational pattern, but what perceives it is the conscious moment. The conscious moment is separate from the thought, and it is the prior. It is the thing that sits in the background to everything. Not the conscious thought. The thought is like an object. It's like the chair. In the model, the way that I see it. So you have it is the software being executed. The actual thing that is executing it, the Boolean logic that leads that follows the logic of the thought, is the observer, is the conscious moment. So it is the thing that is reading the reader.
The observer is the executive command.
It is slightly different. So it would be the executor of the experience itself, but it is not a thing. It is the thing. Yeah. It is the thing that exists behind everything. In idealism,
So the observer, then, the observer is the only thing that we can speak to at any given point, right?
And even more precisely, observation. The observer is already a perception of a unit inside the universal mind perceiving, but perception is all there really is. So there's no seer, there's just seeing.
Right.
And this is not to be like too, I'm not trying to be too, I'm not trying to draw it with too sharp of a pencil. I want to get down to the thing, because I think that's where the confusion begins, because the language starts importing concepts that then confuse. Because, so again, obviously the preamble to all of this is that this is according to my best understanding of idealism, right? So that we can have somebody else enter here, like make corrections. But for the best that I understand idealism, it postulates that the perceptual field, which is consciousness, is not a thing that is the most fundamental thing in existence. It is existence, and there's a difference. That's the difference between panpsychism and idealism. The panpsychism, there is a universe, and then in the universe, which is a thing, there is some kind of a field that is all pervasive, like a quantum field of some sort, that has this quality of consciousness in it, and it interacts with everything. In idealism, there is no separation. There's just this one thing called perception or mind or consciousness or whatever you want to call it, but it is contrived of an infinite field that every point on that field, if you just isolate it, it's a point of perception, pure perception. And then everything in it, into all the interactions inside of it, give rise to everything, including what we perceive as the laws of physics. And we are almost like the alters, the multiple personalities of the universal mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what I was trying to say about the combination of analytical idealism and psychism, because from my understanding, Kastrup's analytical idealism doesn't. Admittedly, I should probably read his book again, but it doesn't integrate that fundamental field of consciousness very well. It seems like Bernardo had an issue with, the idea of the table being a conscious agent. But if we're talking
it's not a conscious agent, but it is conscious. It is mind.
It can be a conscious agent. The right, or is that incorrect?
In Kastrup's model, it can be.
In Kastrup's model,
I don't know enough about. I don't know enough about that. I do think that if I have to make a guess, I never heard him speak about that, and I haven't read his book, so I don't know. But if I have to guess from everything else that he ever said, I would say that his answer would be along the lines of, because whatever the table is some object of interest, let's call it. It's some object that serves a purpose within the mind space. Its reality, as it is entangled with a perception, which is just one type of possibility in the mind space, because what the mind space is ultimately, it has a lot more functions than we realize as just perceptions. It would be, the reality of it would be contingent on these instances of these other boundary contingent objects like humans as they interact with them. But it is part of a larger constituents that is occurring, and it is still mind. So the table, whatever the table on its own side is mind. And I guess, yes, it would say it has some perception, but this perception is some kind of a proto state of perception that doesn't resemble what we experience. It's not like, and actually, according to Kastrup, the universal mind is not actually experiencing itself, because there is no self to it. There is nothing that is in relationship to, because it is the totality. So there's nothing outside of it. There's nothing to point to. There's no goals. There's no drives. There's no nothing. There's no, and in fact, a thought that he offered that was very novel to me, because I never thought about that at all, ever, which is that it might be that we became aware before God did. So it's almost like the nodes, because they're smaller and you can have faster feedback loops, all of a sudden became aware of themselves. And now slowly God becomes aware of itself through us. So it's like God didn't even know it was a thing. And now slowly it's becoming more like aware through us. And in that sense, if the table is still in the regions of mind that doesn't have this closing loop, because in order to be self-aware, you have to have a closing of a loop of information of some sort. But because of this, the limitation of the speed of light, regions of space that didn't have enough time for the light to come back to itself, which is the fastest signal that can travel through the medium, it would not have self-awareness. It would have awareness, but it would be completely open-ended. There's just, and we can't even fathom what that might mean, but it is a pure consciousness. And the table would be included in something like that, I think he would say.
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, I would certainly agree with that model. I think it seems to me as a perceptual unit that I can shift my awareness, that it's feasible to assume that shift on the same level of sensory input, or even to some expanded degree, but also in the opposite direction as well, to a much narrower kind of perceptual experience.
Like what? Like what, for example? Like, give me an example of that one.
Oh, I don't know, the moisture content in my wood as a tree, or
I see. So right, even the qualities of things within things and all of that stuff.
Right. Well, I mean, those are all experiences that are being had. Like,
Yeah.
we don't even have to discuss that. Like, we know it's obvious that the bee is having the experience of regurgitating the stuff that makes honey and so forth and so on. Like, trees do sense other organisms around them, and fungi does, XYZ. We know all these things. These are all experiences that I think are the point. It seems like, I don't know if analytical idealism is the perfect philosophical model or not for what's actually going on, coupled with panpsychism or otherwise. But I mean, these bodies of work that you and I have talked about before, like that of Donald Hoffman's Case Against Reality, and obviously Bernardo Kastrup's work, in addition to just his analytical idealism.
Yeah, no, I think it gets close, but I think I agree, and also Bernardo does make, if and when I have the chance to talk to him, one of the things I really want to ask him is, because I really respect his intellectual prowess, and I do think he's one of the deeper thinkers of our time. But this is why I'm a little confused about his example with the one that he always gives with as to why, in his opinion, computers can never become conscious. And the reasoning he gives is that if you try to model a bladder on a computer, you don't expect for your computer to pee itself, right? But I'm like, what a weird example by somebody who's that smart, because you're talking about a different substrate here, right? So the reason that you can pee with a bladder is because there's a physical substrate on which that model is executed. If you simulate a whole person with a bladder on a computer and you give it all the attributes that a person has, even though they're not physical, well, that person can pee from the bladder, right? So that like examples like this, I don't quite understand, because I feel like he limits himself unnecessarily. It seems like an arbitrary choice. I would love to ask him about this, because I don't understand his did you ever hear him give this example? It's like he's saying it's substrate dependent, basically.
No, it doesn't ring any bells, but I mean, it brings to mind these concepts of, there's so many people that consider, the experience of a bee or the experience of a cat or the experience of a cow to not be as conscious as human beings, which is just absurd. I mean, we can spend 5 seconds and find examples in which it's obvious that most of these species or entities do have the same kind of emotional experiences that we do, and in some cases are nearly as or more intellectual than we are. But obviously it's going to be a spectrum, and it's going to be different parts of a spectrum. So if you, especially when you talk about silicon-based intelligence versus carbon-based intelligence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or something. I mean,
that's the point. That's the thing that he points to. He creates a line there. He says that anything that isn't carbon instantiated in our physical reality cannot have that consciousness, because it's based on some other substrate that doesn't
right. But we can also agree that advanced enough technology is going to appear, as cliche as it is, it's true, like magic. And advanced enough AI will be able to fool the most comprehensive, toughest, exams or tests there are to test and see if it is actually conscious. How do you actually determine if something is conscious? Can you prove that I'm conscious? I don't think you can. I mean, you could prove that there's brain activity. You could prove that I have a heartbeat. You could prove a lot of things, but I don't think you can prove that I'm conscious. So,
well, I can prove the consciousness is real by having it. And yeah, you're right. I can never know if you're really conscious.
Right. That's it. Right. So I think what happens eventually is the conversation changes from, I don't know, pro and anti groups that are, that are protesting for or against AI superintelligence, or that form around AI bots or something. I don't know. I mean, I would expect that kind of stuff in the future.
Yeah.
AI bot 347 for president of the United States, New America, whatever the hell it's called, in 1,000 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's definitely I'm just excited that we live in a time where there's a possibility that we're gonna start tying all these things to something technical that would actually do something real in the world versus just kind of keep postulating the the hypotheticals around it.
I was going to say a lot of that conversation I felt like we were having earlier about what was it, idealism and just what the existence is around us. In my beliefs, I think our souls are the only thing that's actually from God that we're experiencing on a day-to-day thing. Like, it almost feels like we're Sims characters. And when we have that conversation, we're staring at the pixels and trying to get as deep into the pixels and where are these pixels coming from and how do these pixels exist? It's like, screw it. How the hell are we in these pixelated bodies? And where is this consciousness coming from that we're experiencing constantly? Like, are we an individual? Are we part of a collective mind? You know what I mean? That's the thoughts I usually have. I try not to fixate on the physical because that's not where we're from. I think we're just here having an experience, but where we're from is entirely different. I don't think we have physical bodies.
All right. Well,
I have lots of assumptions there and whatever, just based on my beliefs and things I've experienced and whatnot. But
I tend to believe that that's probably true. I agree with most of that. I mean, Danny's familiar with a few of my experiences, I think. I don't know if he recall, like you said, it's been a while, but I had UFO experiences growing up, close encounters with craft right across the street and faces flying at me in the dark and legitimate things that I couldn't explain. And then about 9 years ago, I got wrapped up in this stuff with Lou. I was focused on physical evidence. I was going to prove that ET exists. Like, I know what the probability of intelligent life looks like in the universe, in the galaxies, and for our galaxies, statistically, I follow all that stuff. I can prove this, right? That was my marching order 8 or 9 years ago. And then lights started appearing in the sky after I, was thinking about research papers that these guys were publishing at ATIP. And it's all the same stuff that Barbara's talking about now. You focus, you change your awareness, you change your focus state. The Monroe Institute talks about it and all the work that Robert Monroe has done. Of course, there's not Dr. Long, my big toe guy that worked for Robert Monroe.
Tom Campbell.
Tom Campbell, right? Yeah, it's Tom Campbell's work. You got Newton's work on life between lives, which is fascinating if nothing else. But all of these different bodies of work, Dr. Long's work in near-death experiences, and the work in the Northeast and reincarnation and so much. I mean, there's so much. It's everywhere in every possible metaphysical class that you could imagine. Like there are bodies of work that prove that there's more to the nature reality, and that we're missing something pretty substantial. And like Danny was saying earlier with respect to what's his face's work. Dr. The Case Against Reality, Hoffman. I think that's the base level. DMT is a tool that can be used to see through these different layers. It's like modulating, in my opinion. It's like changing the TV channel. I've been a woman in another life. Like I was her, like in a Jeep, riding around in South Africa, going into stores and houses as her. I was a little kid on a bus. I've been other people. Danny, you talked about the interface that pops up for you. Everybody has has their own experiences with this stuff and their own insights. As of late, I've been turned on to Brad on TikTok. Admittedly, he doesn't really give that much away, but he claims he's part of the laser experiment. He's managed to attain a level of communication with the entities while not on a trip, which is interesting. You're familiar with this?
No, tell me more about it.
The way that he paints the picture is like you're working with him on it or something. He claims that they're providing him equations and stuff and all kinds of things, and they're coming to him and his family after he's reached a level of gnosis with the molecule.
And
Sound
then?
familiar?
No.
No. Okay. Well, maybe he's full of shit.
Wait.
I don't know.
Why does that automatically mean that?
Well, it doesn't necessarily automatically mean that. I don't know, but he's very cryptic, so I don't understand the necessity to be cryptic. So it leads me to be maybe a bit.
Wait, hold on. I think I'm lost. Who are you talking about?
I don't know his last name. His first name is Brad.
Oh, Brad. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Brad of, is it Brad of Arc? Is that right?
I don't know the that handle, but okay. Now I understand what you're talking about. Now I'm less confused. So okay, so repeat the thing again.
So you are familiar with his work with the molecule, or
he bought the laser, and then he started telling me he's seeing all these things, and then he started exploring another light and things like this. And then he started exploring these like very esoteric spaces. And I've seen this before, which is that people kind of go through this like almost like an awakening where they have a lot of information, a lot of energy moving through them. I've seen this a few times. And for the most part, I'm trying to explain to people that are going through this, you have to let it pass, because it's not that nothing's going anywhere. Don't worry. There's no like insights are going to leave you. It's just that a lot of things are moving through you. So you have to let it balance out. And that's the stage where I kind of saw it happening. And then he involved his boss, and they started doing it together, and they got into the thing. We tried to meet a couple times, didn't really work out. But they went to Paul Hynek's house. They showed them the laser. And then they...
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, okay. So what was the claim you were asking if I know? Like, what is the thing that you then said is full of shit because of it?
Oh, no, I wasn't saying anybody was full of shit. I asked you if you were familiar with the guy.
Oh yeah. I did not register. You said Brad. Okay, now I understand. Yeah, no, I'm definitely familiar. I know him. Yeah.
Yeah, I asked about your familiarity with him, and I find it really interesting that he claims that, because I think I've reached, I've gotten close to that kind of, I don't know about a recurring uninitiated experience. That's the part of his overall experience that I find really fascinating, is he's claiming that the entity communication is happening outside of any kind of self-initiation, if you follow.
Yeah.
But
do you feel?
Are you guys familiar with what a Kundalini experience is? Kundalini awakening, Christ consciousness.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, ghostly. That's what we're talking about.
Sorry, I got a phone call.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm talking about, that I saw happening with Brad. So when a certain amount of, when there's an opening, sometimes what happens to people is that the thing opens, the gates open, and then there's this like complete dissolution of this reality, and then you just trying to build your way back. This also happened to Dennis McKenna in La Chorrera, and I've seen this now happening to multiple people. And sometimes it can be very stressful, and it's a very big process that takes a lot out of you. And I think that, at least my observation, is that very often everything feels extremely meaningful because everything is connected for you. And then it's very difficult to maneuver through that space without getting lost, because everything seems connected to everything. So you're making all these connections. But that's why I keep saying, okay, but what's the thing? Like, what is it making? Like, what is the thing you are saying that is translates to our space. You see what I mean? Like, it has to be. They came up with some equations. I looked at the equations. I sent it to a friend of mine. I even know they sent it to Gallimore. I sent it to my friend who's a physicist. He said, it's interesting, but I don't see anything innovative here. But they claiming that this is some kind of a way to be able to produce. I can share the equation with you if you want, and you can look at it yourself because you're an engineer. It will take you a couple of Googles and maybe some work with ChatGPT because there is some theoretical physics infused in it. But overall, it's not that complicated. It's just a matter of putting something in a particular field, and then having the scalar has to do, the vector has to do with the well, I think it's actually a tensor in there. I don't remember, but in any case, the thing that causes the thing to move is the difference between the field. So you divide by the field strength. I'll send you the equation, and the question I keep proposing is like, okay, what is it? Like, what do you make with it? Like, can you make something with this? And that's why I'm still kind of, I didn't really get an answer for that. And that's why, because the amount of information is infinite, I have to rely on things you can substantiate.
Yeah, it's interesting. No, I find those stories with the molecule of particularly high interest, I guess, because of the, if I'm being honest, maybe the more defined narrative storyline, more than anything. I don't know if you're familiar. There was a guy that had a subreddit for a few years, but one particular year, probably the year it was most popular online, he took DMT nearly every day, and he documents every experience.
Yeah, talking about Rob. What's his name? He has a YouTube channel.
Does he?
Yeah, you're talking about Rob. What's his name? Somebody help me here. I was on his show a couple times.
He has a. Are you sure this guy's? He's significantly younger than us. I mean,
no. Then there's somebody else. I mean, I've done it for a year plus. So what are his claims about?
I know you have.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of valuable intelligence there in the experiences that those extended number of experiences, or at least they are from my perspective.
And by the way, just before the Cosmic Cowboy, yeah, we know Jacobo Greenberg, just so you don't think we're ignoring you. But yeah, familiar with him. Absolutely. Continue, brother.
Yeah. I lost my train of thought. What were we?
Wow, me too. The guy on the Reddit. The guy on Reddit.
Of the molecule entities.
Oh, right. So the guy that I had in mind, he claimed that they were building him a suit, that he would wake up in what he initially described as kind of a holding cell. And then these jester type entities were essentially like guards to the cell, and they would test him on his ability to be able to perceive different things that were happening kind of at a secondary level. So imagine the things happening at the primary or the surface level are intended to be more of a distraction, and the things happening under the surface or the secondary level are the things that they really wanted him to pay attention to. So he described this whole process of learning what he needed to do to essentially tune himself into this perceptual state. And then they let him out into this larger environment. And then he met his, he's described a family on that side. He described that they were building a suit for him to transition over to that side permanently through the use of the molecule, just all kinds of stuff. But I mean, it just goes to show you. I mean, we know through Strassman's work, we know through the work in England that there's people have crazy experiences. I don't know where I'm going with this. Yeah,
no, I'm with you, brother.
Don't know where I'm going.
Yeah.
Can I give my thoughts on it real quick?
No. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Not to curve it in a religious way, but just a little bit, regardless of which religion you're in, I guess. I do feel like a lot of these entities, these alien entities, it is spiritual in a sense. And I do think that some are negative and some are positive, and some have intentions that are negative and positive, and they want to fool you. And I kind of
They don't pity the fool. That's for sure.
what was that?
They don't pity the fool.
Well, all I would say is like, be careful how much faith or curiosity you give to an energy that you give to some of these things without knowing exactly what they are, because I really feel like you can get the answer inside of you sober by getting reconnected with the divine rather than trying. And this is coming from someone who's tried the molecule, and I haven't been to church in 25 years. I don't own a Bible, so I don't think I'm just like, preaching. But I do think that it's a spiritual thing, and like the more you can connect with these entities, the more negative it ends up going.
Wait. Hold on. When you connect with particular entities.
Yeah, particular entities.
So considering the fact that I'm about 7,000 times in, I think I have a pretty good understanding of what's possible and impossible in that space. Thank you so much. And to the degree that anybody's sets of expertise matters, for all intents and purposes, I would be considered an expert in the phenomenology. And I can tell you that it's true that all of it exists in there, but it is, to my mind, absolutely not true that there's this clean line between what is favorable and unfavorable. What I mean by that is that there's first of all, you develop a pretty good understanding of who is whom, and that's because you see their behavior over time. It's basically exactly the same that you do with people. Somebody might appear as one thing one time, and then they might be somebody else after a month. When you know them for years, a more coherent picture emerges. It's true they can still be some kind of a psychopath that was disguising themselves for decades, but you're not going to stop trying to create relationships with people because psychopaths exist, right? It just, you have to go buy something. On the flip side of that, these ideas about the divine, I find, lend themselves really well to delusion because they feel good. And not everything that feels good is good. So there's a thing that you can say on the one hand, you can kind of feel it and right? But the only way you have to truly judge is to really acclimate and get yourself familiar with it over time. And unfortunately, at least with the hyperspace of the molecule, there's not a lot of people on the planet that have any kind of meaningful relationship with these things because they simply don't know them well enough. I think there's maybe, I'm going to be pulling it out of my ass, obviously, but realistically, I think there's less than 100 people on the planet that have this kind of experience. And that's because it's just not, even people who kind of partake in these things. So I'm saying, like, even as somebody who went in like 800 times, they're a newbie in comparison to the level of expertise that will be required, right? And that's a not a problem, but it is something to contend with, because you kind of have to rely on a very small, tiny group of people's hearsay. And on top of that, a lot of the people that I do know, a lot is a strange word to use here, because I know maybe 7 people like that, but that's already a lot in that, right? They're not all the same either, and some of them can be less reliable in terms of their reporting is less reliable. So, like, the way that I see it, all the people that participated in these experiments in the Imperial College in London, they don't have enough experience to do that. They don't have a good enough of a world model of that. And it's fine, because you still have to correct for a lot of other things, because you have to make sure that these people are psychologically healthy, that nothing goes wrong. You have to do it somehow. And, but I guess my deeper point is that I would second what you're saying, that people, doesn't matter, they have to be careful in general, because just like with everything, you want to make sure that you are staying on top of what's going on. But the space is way more complex than people realize, and I'm not even sure that it's necessarily the thing that people think it is. So like, I don't even know if saying that it's hyperspace or higher computational space or spiritual space, I don't even know if these definitions are correct. And I just don't mean in a term of like, well, this is semantics. I do mean what the words point to. I'm not sure that these are correct definitions. So I think it might be way more complex than we currently realize. And the truth might be that it's a lot more straightforward than we realize, and at the same time, a lot more complex than we realize. So it might just be that we are, in fact, just part of a collection of infinite simulations. Within these simulations, there are these concepts of the divine to keep certain order, so to keep checks and balances in place. So even when people start ascending to these higher levels, these experiences of like, whoa, like demonic entities or whatever, they were kind of like, okay, I'm going to steer away from that. So it's almost like this wall, you don't approach it anymore, right? But this wall might have been where the exit is or something like that. You know what I mean? Like it's there for you to just not interact with it anymore. So because of that, I'm saying the picture is not that clear cut. But I would isolate from everything you said. I would isolate this one message, which is definitely be very careful with what you're doing. It's just that when you said be careful with who you're giving your attention to, because if you give attention to the wrong being, over time it will become worse and worse. That advice doesn't lead you anywhere, because it just renders you afraid of interacting with anyone. And that's like, you got to do something. You got to interact with somebody there. And then I would say only over a very long period of time you would understand who is whom. And I would tell you even another thing that complicates it. For example, what people would call the jokers, they are impossible to read because they themselves don't know their own nature on purpose. That's how it's constructed. So they are not either and both at the same time. And this is why very often people report that their sense of humor is a little bit a bit much. Like they can do things that you're like, whoa, like they're a lot. Like they're in your face in a way that is almost like it's almost like they're trying to hurt you. But then what I realized after many visits, I was like, oh, they are paying attention. You just don't know you can ask. So it's like they actually care. They just don't know what you're experiencing. So they just do their thing. And because they have this quality that they're existing in between the realms, they don't really have any, they're not limited by any level. That's why they're one of the most powerful beings, because they can jump between all the levels, including all the way to the divine. And they just jump everywhere, and they can be so energetic and so much. And people are just like, oh my God, and they just like freeze. But you can actually ask them, hey, can you take it down a notch? And they would be like, oh, I'm sorry. And then they would like do something else. Like they didn't realize they were hurting your feelings or something. Like, so if you're exploring, explore. Just know that you can always say no at any point. Nothing can ever control you. That's a law in existence. Nothing can ever execute anything instead of you. The only thing they can do if they want to do something like that is try and convince you that they can. They would try and convince you that it's only you and them in the world and you're lost, and the only way out is through them. They would try and create these scenarios to convince you that they're your only hope of anything. That is something they can do, but you don't have to believe it. You can just say, no, thank you. And you can just sit in your place, and they are not allowed or cannot enter your space or enter your personal agency. That always has to remain pure. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, no, I mean, I haven't done this. I haven't done it thousands of times. I've done it hundreds of times, but it's the same thing. You know, I mean, here's another cliche. You are your own worst enemy. So, I mean, if the individual thinks, you know, it doesn't know any better, then you could have a really tough time. But like Danny said, you know, there's not anything ever to fear, you know, and then And then there's this question for me that comes up of, well, I mean, anything that can happen given enough time will happen. Everything,
but not in any order.
Everything.
But not in any order.
In any order.
That's a very important point. Yeah.
I guess the reason that I said that, because I've only done it once, and I feel like I was about to break through, and I got scared and snapped myself out of it. So I don't really have anywhere to speak on that realm per se. But I believe that our bodies, our physical bodies, are vessels for a soul to be inside of. And
sure.
Or a different dimensional being to be inside of. So when you put your soul out there, maybe it can't affect your soul, but it can affect the body you're going to be stuck in for the rest of your experience here. And I say that as someone who's like experienced almost like an exorcism, and not in the way you picture of it in the movies at all whatsoever. Not that dramatic, but in my own time alone at my house by accident, the whole thing, it all happened. And when I woke up the next morning, I realized like I've had some type of dark thing attached, lingering over me, feeding off of me for years.
Oh yeah, that can absolutely happen. Yeah. They're like,
so
yeah,
I guess that's all that I meant. Like, I don't want to like, that's why I tried to like keep it as vague as possible, but kind of like certain entities, sure. I don't know who they are, what their intentions are, anything like that. But I do.
They're like parasites. They like the energy and the negative energy, and they will help create situations for you to create more of that so they can eat. Yeah. No, that can definitely happen. Yeah. Zoltan was telling the story about this. This happened to him, and he felt like this heaviness on his chest for weeks, and he couldn't understand because he's generally very calm and happy. And all of a sudden, he had this like weird thing where he couldn't breathe, and then he went into the molecule space, and these beings laid him down, and literally they pulled this thing which had like this crazy stinger, and it was in his chest, and they pulled him out and like threw him away, and he's like, "Be careful, because they're around." So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff.
But the thing is, they can happen to you no matter what attention. Like it just like it can get you off guard.
It's well, I mean, I would compare it to getting a cold or a COVID or the flu or something. I mean, it's the same kind of concept, I think, at its core, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The ecosystems are diverse on every spectrum. That's one of the eye-opening things about the molecule for me was just the confirmation that not only is there an afterlife, but I mean, gosh, there's an infinity of absolutely everything, anything conceivable.
There's this channel. There's this channel on Instagram called Nature is Metal. You know that one?
No.
Basically, it just shows you all these like crazy shit of like animals, doing animal things. It's just bananas. So if nature is metal, imagine how metal reality is.
Yeah, right. It's wicked stuff.
On that note, guys, love you all, but I'm gonna try and call it an early night. Thank you so much for doing this. Everybody, go follow Jay and Morpheus. Well, yeah, on TikTok. Jay, is that your handle? Just Jay? I'm having a hard time believing that.
It is.
That's amazing. How did you grab that? That sounds crazy. How could you grab a letter on TikTok? That's amazing.
He was the fourth user.
Danny. Well, I think my actual handle is called Quartz Nature Trail because I was gonna make a whole I hike a lot, so I was gonna make a bunch of videos of hiking, and I made two and gave up on that whole thing. So it's through Jay.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, gonna check that. Yeah, pull it up. It is looking insane, and there's some gory stuff in there, guys. So I don't know if I necessarily recommend that Instagram page, but it is metal, that's for sure. So Jay and Morpheus, as you imagine it is being spelled, Morpheus, Morpheus. Good friend of mine, Chase, and thank you so much, guys, so much for being here, participating. Nico and Evil Icon, love you guys. Casey just joined. I hope you feel better, brother. Everybody is the Mons, Ebony and Chris and Jessica, everyone. Thank you for being here, Owl, and for the community. Yeah, so I'll call the night for today. If you guys want to follow me across platforms, it's Danny Goller on Instagram and TikTok. It's Goller Danny on X.
Hey, do you have a link to your YouTube and your bio on here?
Yeah, just it should be in the bio. Yeah, but on YouTube it's just Dango Thoughts. DANGO Thoughts, 3 words.
But you were saying the Discord's on there.
Discord is on the main page of YouTube, the 3rd link from the top. Yes, please come. Thank you for reminding me that. Absolutely. Twitch is LaserX83, and YouTube is the most important thing to follow, which is Dango Thoughts, and you can join the members program that includes early access to all my content, weekly lives like these, only for members only, where we dive deeper into subject, we watch videos, we analyze all kinds of things. It's a lot of fun. We do Zoom calls from the 2nd tier and up. We did one today. It was amazing. 3 hours of great conversation. We're just exchanging ideas. And private stuff for my life that I will always only post on YouTube members. This content is not going to be available anywhere else. And I will be posting much more kind of like behind the scenes of things there. So that, for nothing else, that should be worth it. Kami Bell, love you. Thank you so much. Evil Icon. And I think that's it. That's everything I had to announce. Love you guys. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Chase, love you, brother. Thank you so much for coming on. Jay, thank you, brother.
Yeah,
and have a good night. Peace and love. Ciao.
You too, brother. Take care.
Bye. See you guys.